Are you Tony Stank?
Sorry, didn't see there. Welcome in. We are back. Episode 3 of Delivery for Tony Stank, where we're going to be talking about the third episode of What If as well. As always, please remember to give us a follow on Twitter, and obviously subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, follow if you're listening on Spotify, and yes, thank you very much. Let's go. So yes, welcome in. Thank you very much for being here. It's so great to be back. I apologise, the episode should have went out at the weekend, but I was busy on Thursday as well. So from now on, I can confirm the episode will be out at the weekend, probably like the Saturday night. So I really, I'm so sorry. But that doesn't matter. We're moving on. We're here today to talk about episode 3 of What If. So the question that they gave us was, what if the world lost its mightiest heroes? Now, I've spoken to a few people about this episode, and I think it's one that's pretty divisive, where people either love it or hate it. And I am thankfully in the love it part. I don't know if I hate any Marvel stuff, but yes, I love it. What I think about this episode is, and what I think about the whole series in particular, is that they seem to be doing something different each episode, which is great, which is exactly what you want. They're kind of free of the limitations or the expectations of your live action movies, your live action TV shows. So I think they try to do kind of different kind of things with it. Now, obviously, we had the first episode of Captain Carter, where it was essentially a straight up, not a straight up remake, but kind of like just a remake of a film that we know, and still grounded in relative reality. The second episode, obviously, was with T'Challa being Star-Lord, and that one, again, it was kind of, spacey and a bit out there, which is kind of what we thought What If would be more about. And this episode, the way I like to think this episode is, instead of asking the question what if, we ask the question who done it. So it's like for me it was like a murder mystery, the likes of your Agatha Christie's and your Knives Out, that kind of thing, where it's more of like it keeps you guessing as to what's happening or what's going to happen. So that's kind of the way that I think of it after having rewatched it a couple of times. It's more of who done it as opposed to what if. Yes, so that's the kind of angle I was going in at, and I felt that, or certainly on rewatches, that's the angle I went in at and found that I enjoyed it more. Especially because we don't know what happens until the end. We don't know what's been happening. But yes, we'll get into kind of the ins of the actual episode. So yeah, the first day of the week we get, the first part of the episode is the Monday, where we have Fury and Natasha driving to the place with the big donut from Iron Man 2, where Tony is having a kind of a bitch fit. A wee hissy fit, like a little diva break, a little bitch fit. And now Fury is voiced by Samuel L. Jackson, who's back. Natasha is not voiced by Scarlett Johansson. There's obviously been quite a lot. I don't know if this was before the whole issues that she's had with Disney with the release of Black Widow, but she's not back. Scarlett Johansson is not back, unfortunately. So they talk about the Avengers initiative and essentially turn up at this place. I believe it's called Randy's Donuts in the film, where Tony Stark is sitting in his Iron Man suit, eating some donuts in the middle of a big old donut. And yeah, so all this kind of part really mirrors the movie, Iron Man Iron Man 2 movie, where Fury gets out, talks to Iron Man, and then they're in the donut place, and a lot of the conversation is pretty much word for word. So again, this is a parallel it's good for us to see the other side of it. So this is what we know, and then it takes a drastic turn. Fury talks about the palladium poisoning that Tony has going up his neck, and Natasha uses a wee injection, which essentially is meant to abate the symptoms. Sorry, I'm gonna keep calling her Scarlet. Natasha, the way what she talks about the injection, so it says it's not a cure, just abates the symptoms. That is exactly word for word what she says in the film, but it's kind of more drawn out because she can see that Tony is struggling, and then we see him actually die. He falls over, he chokes and falls over, and Mr. Iron Man is done for. Dunzo. Dead. Dun, dun, dun. So we see Fury obviously really shaken by this, and there's a fantastic cut that Fury kind of evaporates out or dissolves out, and it's the Watcher. And the Watcher then takes us through a wee slideshow we've got of our favorite Avengers. Or you see Tony fighting Whiplash. You see Thor with Mjolnir. We see Natasha and Clint at the Battle of Chitauri, and then Hulk smashing Loki at the Puny God part of Avengers, and then we get our Hero Avengers shot. And this leads us then into Tuesday. So Tuesday again leads into like a basically the exact same framing that we have for Thor, where Mjolnir is in the massive crater in New Mexico, and Coulson is there to report to Fury. Now, this is where it differs. So Fury wasn't there before. Fury wasn't there in the Thor films, but this time Natasha has been held by S.H.I.E.L.D. for questioning, because it essentially looks like it's her that's killed Tony. Now, we know that's not the case, because obviously in our universe, in our Marvel Cinematic Universe, it doesn't. The injection doesn't kill him. The injection it genuinely helps him. But they don't know that. So yes, so S.H.I.E.L.D. has her in custody, and looks to transport her from their holding facility to somewhere else for discussion and investigation. Fury then slips Nat a little the nanotech, or sorry, not the nanotech, I don't like it, the little injection thing, so that she can use it or try and work out what happened with it. Now, Natasha is taken out the S.H.I.E.L.D. holding facility, and is kind of, what's the word? Escorted. She's escorted. There we go. I had a mind blank there. She's escorted by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, Brock Rumlow and the other guy, who are both in the films. Rumlow is played by Frank Grillo, who is back to voice him. He obviously becomes Crossbones, as we know, in the Civil War film. And yes, so Fury slips Natasha the injector thing, and yeah, basically tells her he knows it wasn't her that killed him, but his hands are tied, and they need to let things kind of run their course a little bit. But he does, when he passes her the injector, he does say that someone inside S.H.I.E.L.D. has tampered with the syringe, basically. We then end up with Natasha in the convoy, in the van, with massive group of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that have just escorted her into there. Obviously, as I say, a way to take her off to somewhere to have an investigation or interview or something. And Crossbones is in the front of the van. Natasha passes her handcuffs to the next guy, the guy next to her, sorry, to to hold on to them while she's while she basically sorts that out, and he takes it, and then a massive fight ensues. Now, one of the highlights of the What If series in the past two episodes, or certainly one of the highlights of the first episode, the Captain Carter, was the fight scenes. We spoke about the long tracking shot that was set to the swing music that went through the planes and blah blah blah, and also the shot in the headlights of the van where she's fighting off a group of Nazis. Again, this fight scene is so intricate and very well put together. So we have Natasha obviously fighting off the group of shield agents. It's very realistic. There's like parts where her body shape and balance is it's really intricately put together. We see her well, first of all, we see her punching a guy a few times in the face, and there's like spit that comes slobbering out when she's done that. There's a part where she like clinches a guy's head, knees him in the face, uses that same leg to turn, hit the other boy, take that leg back around to kick someone else, and then swing that leg back around. It's like, I mean, I know I could certainly do that. It looks easy for someone like myself, but it's it's actually an incredibly detailed technique, and the way that they put this on the screen in animated form, it looks great. It looks fantastic, and it's only like 10-20 seconds, if that, of the scene. But yeah, it just looks incredible, especially, as I say, if you slow it down and look at it frame by frame, it looks even cooler. But because it looks so realistic, or because the movement is so realistic, it feels harder hitting for us as a viewer. Crossbones then says to the driver that sure, she can hit a punch, but only when it's not expected. But then here's obviously the van kind of shaking and whatever, and gets out of the truck and looks at the back and sees that there's a bunch of shield agents who are now incapacitated, and Black Widow, Natasha, is no longer there. Okay, so next we have our next sort of foray into a film scene that we've seen before, and that is in New Mexico. We have the shield set up for Thor's hammer. Now again, this time Fury's here, so Fury wasn't there last time, or sorry, in the movies. So we have Fury and Clint talking about Mjolnir and how no one can lift it. Not even Jackson, and he's and he does CrossFit, because anyone who does CrossFit can do whatever. Fury talks about how someone's going to come looking for it, and we hear about a person breaking into the facility. Then Coulson gives us the the incredibly detailed description of Thor. He tells he's got a visual on the intruder, Caucasian male, mid-20s with great hair, really great hair. And Fury's not too happy with this description. He says, "Excuse me," and Coulson tells us that he's gorgeous, that Thor is gorgeous. I mean, obviously, we can all agree with that. So, yeah. We've got Barton in the sky. As again with the film, he's on his little bird's nest, trained up, little, I don't know, little box where he has his arrow pulled, poised, and ready to potentially shoot the suspect that's coming for the artifact, Mjolnir. Of course, in the film again, he doesn't take the shot. Thor then tries to lift it, can't, and is tased by Shield and taken away for like investigation or interrogation. This time, when Thor makes his way to Mjolnir, does a little hair flick. There's a bolt of lightning, and Clint releases his arrow, which then strikes Thor and kills him. Obviously, Clint, as we know, is Hawkeye. He's a master marksman. He basically never misses, never makes mistakes. But this time, it seems that he has, even though he says, I didn't release. It wasn't me. So yeah, so then Hawkeye is then taken into like a cell essentially. I forgot to say Hawkeye is voiced by Jeremy Renner again, who is back. And Coulson and Fury discuss how Clint has said nothing to them. He's not speaking to any of them, but Fury decides that he'll speak to him. Fury goes in. There's no response from Clint, so he says, wake up, Sleeping Beauty, and Hawkeye slumps to the floor and is dead. He's dead. So right now we have a dead Iron Man. You have a dead Thor. You have a dead Hawkeye. 3 of like the main Avengers that we know are dead. Indeed. So yeah, they're trying to work out who potentially has killed Hawkeye, because he's been in a sealed cell. Who could it be? Now this is where, like, for me, like the whodunit side of it, the murder mystery side of it comes out. The Agatha Christie inspired thing for it comes out, and that's where I think it's more suited to essentially the question should be who as opposed to what if. We then have Fury and Coulson in a morgue with Hawkeye and Thor's bodies. There's a weird moment where where Coulson sniffs Thor's decomposing corpse and says even though he's rotten, he still smells like lavender, which is pretty creepy. And then Fury has a wee sniff as well. Weird little moment. Yeah, and they kind of just talk about how there's like no real link between a shield assassin and it's actually Tony Stark. So they still don't know. Then we move on to Culver University. So if you've seen Incredible Hulk movie, which actually it's not on Disney Plus, I believe it's something to do with Universal when it was released. So it's actually not on Disney Plus. So if you're doing like a Marvel rewatch, you won't get this film. I don't know if you can catch it on, I think it's on Netflix maybe. But yeah, this is the scene of the Incredible Hulk final kind of battle between him and Abomination. Natasha turns up and speaks to Betty Ross, who's not voiced by Steven Tyler's daughter. I can't remember her name. Miss Tyler. Elizabeth Tyler? I think that's her name. Anyway, not voiced by her. It is voiced by someone else. And they talk about how they talk about how Natasha's not actually there to find Bruce Banner. She's kind of needing Betty's help to work out how Tony was murdered, essentially. But yeah, so she's not here about the green guy, she says, or Dr. Bruce Banner, and asks Betty to help her find out why, to find out how potentially he died, and hands her the syringe. They managed to work out that it's some form of nanotech that has killed Tony Stark, or has changed the has altered the syringe that Natasha used. So yeah, we still don't know too much more. Basically, Natasha then gets a call from Fury asking if she's in a secure location. They think that the Avengers initiative are getting killed out. Natasha Natasha finds Bruce hiding in a closet. And he he tells her that there's no need for any violence. It's not going to end well for anyone. But yes, Fury tells Natasha that people are on Avengers initiative, so Natasha and Bruce Banner are the only ones left. So potentially they are in a lot of danger. There's a fantastic, again, a brilliant shot of the Watcher, overlooking the sort of shield car in the desert. Again, there's some really cool little little really cinematic kind of like sort of techniques that they use, and this one is obviously a vista of the New Mexico desert with the Watcher looming over, still watching. I think with this type of episode, where it is again relatively grounded in our cinematic universe, it just gives us a little nod, just a reminder that we are not watching the MCU, we're watching a completely different universe that through the Watcher's lens, essentially. Now, so as Coulson in this shield car gets to the start of the shield base, there's a rumbling, and we see the Bifrost come down, and out of the Bifrost comes our boy Loki, Mister Loki himself, shows up with the Asgardian warriors, the destroyer armor, and he introduces himself as the crown prince of Asgard, the rightful king of Jotunheim, and god of mischief. So what this obviously means is that now that Thor is dead, there's no challenge to the throne. Like once Odin once Odin passes on his crown, passes on the throne, it goes straight to Loki. And again, Loki is back and voiced by Tom Hiddleston. So he's been a busy boy. He's been a really busy boy with obviously Loki, the TV series, and which is going to have a second season, and being in What If as well. So as Loki is doing his little introduction, we get Fury. Fury's phone starts to ring, and Loki asks him to pick it up. Then we see it's Natasha phoning him, and she's with Bruce Banner at the overpass kind of thing at the university where they have been cornered by General Ross and the army. This then leads to Loki telling Fury that they're here for vengeance because an agent of this planet, murdered Thor, and they've come for, as I say, vengeance, basically. Someone takes a shot at Bruce at Culver University. He gets shot in the shoulder, and obviously what that means is when he gets angry, the green eyes come out, and Mr. Hulk starts to show his face. So it kind of goes back and forth between Loki being at the Shield base in New Mexico and the Culver University standoff. Again, this obviously shows us that was all happening at once, and it really racks up the intensity because we know obviously that Hulk's a way to, Bruce Banner's way to turn into Hulk during the standoff with Thaddeus Ross and the army, because someone shoots him, obviously, as I say. Ross doesn't know who shot. He does say to hold the fire. Then we go back to Loki, who has the big old frost, what's it called? The casket of ancient winters. which Loki uses to freeze the or to basically show it's a show of strength, a show of power essentially. So obviously we have Bruce Banner being shot, turns into the Hulk. That bails out. She jumps off the thing, and we get Hulk smash. We get Hulk rage. It's great. The animation of the Hulk is it takes a few different influences from the Incredible Hulk movie, which was obviously Edward Norton. It takes with long hair and stuff like that as well, but then also some from the Ruffalo Hulk, which Bruce and Hulk is voiced by Mark Ruffalo, who obviously was cast at the first Avengers film, was recast as Mark Ruffalo instead of Edward Norton. And we get a Hulk smash where he starts to mash up the army vehicles and things. Now, this next part, it's pretty disgusting. It's pretty horrible. So we get Hulk, and he just stops and starts to look confused, and his body kind of distorts and inflates basically, and we see his muscles, his legs, everything just start to inflate and overflow, until the not the fantastic moment, but as I say, disgusting moment where he literally explodes. Pops. And there's a massive green cloud basically. Now they've obviously had to make this green cloud of dust essentially, as opposed to it being green blood or whatever, like just for family friendly stuff. I don't think we've been able to do a lot more than that, but it's disgusting all the same, even though it's not blood and bone and muscle and stuff going flying out. It's still a harrowing moment, which it's not nice to see. We then obviously Betty Ross kind of breaks down, but we go back to Fury talking to Loki, telling him that the person that's killed Thor has actually killed a couple of his guys as well. But Loki does tell him they're not allies. But Fury says, "Well, let me help you," and he gets a ultimatum until the next sundown, or sorry, next rise of the sun, the next sunrise, to deliver his brother's assassin, and gives us the warning that he will reduce this planet to ice and ash. Right, so we are then on to the Virginian Public Library. This part is very interesting because it actually tells us, or hints really strongly at who is doing this or who's behind all this. But first of all, we get Coulson's password for getting to the Shield database, and it's brilliant. It's highly like perfect for Coulson, because obviously Coulson is a Captain America fan, as we know in the Avengers film. So his password is hashtag Steve I heart Steve 0704. Brilliant. Now 0704, if you're not sure, is Steve Rogers' birthday, 4th of July. Okay, so that gets Natasha into the Shield database, where if you look closely, or if you like pause it, you can see people's files come up. So it shows you the files of Fury, Maria Hill, Alexander Pierce. It then also shows you Janet Van Dyne, but with a cross I think her name as well. Sort of a cross over her photo. Natasha finds something and says, "How did a woman who died 2 years ago access the database yesterday?" Okay. So we in our world, and I believe at this point, people think Janet is dead because she went into the quantum realm. She went into the quantum realm when it was like, I think it was the Cuban Missile Crisis in like 1960s, and presumed as dead. So in Ant-Man and in that Ant-Man film, she is presumed as dead. So I'm presuming as well that is what's happened here. So she's down as dead essentially. Natasha then suddenly says, "You won't win, not against me, not against Shield," to what we think is an empty, dark library, and then she, gets ready for a fight basically and gets absolutely knocked out. But against an assailant, someone that we don't see whatsoever. We never see who the person fighting her is. Now at this time, her phone is calling Nick Fury, and we see her gun get hit away. We see her getting thrown about the room, thrown off the roof, getting easily overpowered in this fight. And what she screams into the phone, which is Fury's voicemail, is, "Fury, it's hope. It's all about hope." Now that's when it clicked for me. That's when it clicked for me that obviously Hope Van Dyne is the daughter of Hank Pym. So that's where for me it clicked that it's got to be something to do with Ant-Man. I wasn't sure if it was going to be Hank Pym. I wasn't sure if it was going to be Hope. I wasn't sure if it was like potentially actually Hope that was doing it. Potentially to avenge the death of her mum or something. I didn't know, but I knew that it was to do with like the Ant-Man side of things. But we then see Natasha get dragged away, never to be heard of again. Which then brings us to back to New Mexico, the town where in the Thor movie he sort of stayed and stuff, and the infamous scene with the coffee, where he throws it down, smashes it, and says another once he's done with it. And we have Nick listening to his voicemail from Natasha, just over and over. It's hope. It's all about hope. And he is trying to obviously work out what the kind of the link is. Coulson shows up with the Avengers initiative and talks to Fury about that and tells about how Fury is also on that Avengers initiative basically. Fury then makes about the car and actually shows us the Captain Marvel pager, where he's obviously thinking about using that to potentially call Captain Marvel and help him out, but ultimately decides to leave it, and I think that's where he clicks. What's happened. So he decides to go and speak to Loki. Well, first of all, he obviously talks to the armor, the destroyer armor, and tells him what to see his boss. So yeah, he chats with Loki, or we don't see this, but he's obviously chatting with Loki, and they come up with something together. And then we move on to Thursday and the Golden Gate Bridge. Again, obviously that's when it's confirmed it's to do with Ant-Man, because that's where Ant-Man's set. It's set in San Francisco. And again, the Watcher is still just telling us that he's there, being our eyes and ears for this universe. You can see him in the background, kind of shrouded in fog, behind the Golden Gate Bridge. And it comes down onto a graveyard in San Francisco. And Fury walks up to the grave of Hope Van Dyne. So it's Hope is dead. Hope is dead, and it says beloved daughter, agent of Shield. So we now know that Hope obviously has been killed, and was working with Shield, potentially closely with Nick Fury. Nick speaks. He just says, if it isn't Hank Pym, and we see Mr. Pym in his yellow jacket armor. Now, he was actually the first yellow jacket in the comics. But yeah, it's Hank Pym, and voiced by Michael Douglas. when obviously when the credits come up, excuse me, when the credits come up, you can see certain names and kind of match them to people, and like Frank Grillo was up and Samuel L. Jackson, that kind of thing. They didn't show Michael Douglas. I noticed in this one they didn't show his name at the start, which is great. Again, this is where the murder mystery, the whodunit side of things works well, because there's not a way for us to put the name, the actor's name to the character, which would have spoiled it really. Especially as soon as we heard about nanotech during the Culver University thing with Betty Ross, that would just, you would have made it the connection there and then. Whereas not show Michael Douglas's name at the start then meant that we genuinely had absolutely no idea what was happening or who was dealing with this. Now Hank and Fury talk about Hope and how she died because of S.H.I.E.L.D. or because of Nick Fury. And so Nick actually mentions how Hope was killed outside Odessa in the Ukraine. Now that is actually an interesting point, because in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, we have a moment where Natasha talks about how she was at a mission in Odessa, had the wheels shot out of the car, and the Winter Soldier was there. And also she tells us that she got shot in the stomach, but it went through her and hit someone else. So what the theory, or what the assumption is that Hope was on that mission instead of Natasha, and potentially it was actually Bucky Barnes, or sorry, the Winter Soldier that killed her. Because remember, this is not the same universe or dimension. This is not the same one as Captain Carter. So we don't have a Captain Carter in this one. We have a Steve Rogers in ice, which we'll find out about later. So it would have happened as we know it, which is Bucky falling off the train, Bucky getting captured by the Russians, being brainwashed, becoming the Winter Soldier. So what they're hinting at there is that Hope Van Dyne was killed by our very own Bucky Barnes as the Winter Soldier. So we learn about how Hank Pym was able to kill each of our Avengers. The first one is obviously when Natasha uses the syringe. He goes into Tony and kills him. With Thor, he is the one that made Clint release, either by going to his hand, I'm assuming opened his fingers. He then flies out of Clint's ear, so I'm assuming he's went in and smacked his brain up or something. I don't know how he'd done it. The horrible one, the one that, as I said, is probably the most disgusting death, is he when there's the shot, he is actually shot into Bruce Banner at first, and throws one of the Hank Pym resizing things at his heart. So he literally becomes massive, like just over kind of inflates stuff. That brought up a wee question for me, and it was how in Avengers, Bruce talks about how he put a bullet in his mouth and the other guy, Hulk, spit it out. So what does that mean for, obviously, internal injuries or things like that? I think it's to do with the fact that it was self-inflicted. He obviously tried to do that, but because he's not aware that Hank is in his bloodstream and is throwing something or doing something internally without his knowledge, I think that is why there wasn't, why it wasn't stopped by Hulk, basically. And yeah, so he is, and obviously he then kills Natasha as well, in the library, sorry, the public library in Virginia. Now Nick is very sarcastic, very kind of blasé about this whole conversation with Hank Pym. asks, when Hank brings up about her mother being an agent, he sarcastically says her mother was an agent, which is obviously completely out of character for Nick Fury. And Hank then has a go at starts to fight Nick Fury, and Nick seamlessly, effortlessly deals with him, just batting away his punches and literally flips right over him. Obviously, this is kind of where it's potential, or you could work out what's happening, and it is actually, as we find out, Loki who is masking himself as Nick Fury, and he dissipates all the different versions, or sorry, the different it's like the Mirage in Apex, where it's got like lots of different decoys and stuff of him, and then eventually changes back into his Loki armor, and Nick Fury turns up. So if you didn't notice that part, you do certainly notice it on the rewatch, that he's a lot more sarcastic, and when he's talking to Hank Pym the first time, and it essentially tells you that it's not Nick Fury without actually telling you that it's not Nick Fury. It's a great little bit of writing there, or the way I kind of see it anyway. We then move on to we move on to Friday and the United Nations in New York City, and of course, in typical Loki fashion, he's decided to stay around a bit, and he does a speech at the UN, in where he is now essentially the ruler of the world. He has a speech that is very reminiscent, almost word for word, for his speech in Avengers, where he is when he's in Germany after the opera. And he talks about subjugation, how humans crave subjugation, and how we're made to be ruled. So Loki gets to rule Midgard, or Earth. This then moves on to Coulson and Fury in a hangar with all the different like caskets, or coffins, each with an Avengers like emblem on it. So we have obviously Thor with the hammer, we've got Iron Man with the mask, we've got Hawkeye with the shield and the arrow, we have Natasha's Black Widow logo, we have Hulk's fist, and yeah, they're all obviously there. Now Nick Fury talks about how in humanity's darkest hour we'll find our heroes, and this leads then into Nick Fury going into what looks like the it actually kind of looks like the Cave of Solitude in Superman, where it's all iced over. It is obviously the ship that Cap was in when he saved the world from the Red Skull. And we see Fury shine a light onto the Captain America shield. He wipes it away and says, "Welcome, Captain," or "Welcome back, Captain," I think it is. And there's a little bit of light on the side of his face, and he turns around, and it's Captain Marvel asking where the fight is. So obviously, Fury is friends with Captain Marvel from the film. And it looks like the Earth's last heroes, or Earth's last hopes, are Captain Marvel and Captain America. So potentially co-captains. And then we then cut to black, and that's it. That's the end of the episode. So that was episode 3 done. Now, again, I don't want to. What I'm going to do going forward is actually rate the certain shows or films, and with TV shows, I'm going to rate them all as like one single thing. I'm not going to rate episode by episode. I understand why that episode is seen as a weaker one in the 3 that have been for What If. It's, as I say, it's one where I don't know if the What If should have been the integral part of it. It's more like as I say, as I've spoke about strenuously, and you're probably bored of me saying, is the who done it for me. That was the more important question of that whole episode. I really like the again the parallels to potentially the movies, or the consequences that change what happens. So obviously with Thor dying, we then have Loki turn up, and that then has consequences on the whole of Earth, because he now then rules Earth, which was literally his whole sort of goal during Avengers, the film, where he wanted to take over the Earth with the Chitauri, but he does it literally diplomatically and with his own army. There's obviously then the consequences of Hope having become a shield agent, and that then turns Hank Pym essentially crazy after she's dead and seeking out revenge. Yeah, it's really quite an interesting part. It's an interesting episode of the What If. But as I say, it maybe doesn't have like the complete out there that we were potentially hoping with What If. It doesn't have that almost shock factor, or even not even shock, like just like complete out there sort of thing. It is very much a more grounded. Again, I keep talking about superheroes being grounded, but it's very much a more um uh sort of a kind of contained story. I know they all are contained stories, but it's yeah. I get why people don't like it. I would say it probably is the weaker of the three, but I still really enjoyed it. So yes, that was another episode of What If Down. Now we're going to obviously to Twitter. We had some feedback from you guys on what you thought of the episode. So first of all, at Mikey Cubed said, finally caught up with this week's episode and it didn't disappoint. Some great action set pieces and genuine laugh out loud moments from Coulson. Brilliant. We then had at Foxy Snob, Coulson's password of perfection and the Thor's majestic locks. Thor's majestic locks did not disappoint. I completely agree. Does have great hair. At F-Stake Jamie said, again, I loved it. I agree it's more grounded than the other episodes so far, but it didn't detract from my enjoyment. The creators continue to show care and attention to the detail the MCU legacy, and I just love the art direction. Oh, and Thor's hair is beyond beautiful. So Thor's hair is getting a lot of love, and completely agree. At Fluid Highway says, not as out there with the concept this time I felt. Still enjoyed the episode, but was hoping it would lean into a more out there concept. I completely agree as well. That's where we talked about how it it did kind of stay a bit more grounded in reality, but each of them have been different so far. So I'm really excited to see what happens next. We'll talk about that. At Bulls Celtic said, hashtag Steve C. Steve, I heart Steve 0704. I really enjoy Coulson. Absolutely. It's brilliant. But yes, guys, thank you so much for your tweets there. I will be putting out another tweet after episode 4, asking you what you think. If you want to be featured on the podcast, obviously, just tweet to that tweet I put out, and we'll get you on the podcast. So thanks. So yes, going forward, episode 4 of What If is out on Wednesday, which is the 1st of September. Now, this is the episode that we've kind of spoke about before, or kind of spoke about the pictures that have come up. So it centers around Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange potentially fighting an evil Doctor Strange. And in this, there is a shot of him speaking to Captain Carter. We know it's Peggy because she has the shield. So I wonder if this could be the first one that either links in fully or just sort of links in with previous episodes. So I'm really intrigued to see where this goes and see if this does link into the further Marvel kind of content, or if it is just purely kind of on its own. But I'm so excited to see, because obviously Doctor Strange is going to be a big part of No Way Home coming up, and Doctor Strange 2. And they deal with multiverses as well. So I'm really not sure if it will kind of all tie together. I kind of hope it does, but I also kind of hope it doesn't. I like to have potentially a separate thing, a separate like show or a separate kind of entity to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I trust Marvel. I trust Marvel. We'll see what happens, and we'll kind of take it from there. But yes, that is us for the latest episode of Delivery for Tony Stank. As I say, we will be looking to have the episode out on Saturday. Might be Saturday night, but yeah, I'm gonna be. I've now got Thursdays free, so it gives me a bit of time to sort of do this and get it out in time for you guys. It would just been a bit late this week. I'm sorry. I apologize. But there will be none of that next week. It'll all be good. So yes, as I say, follow us on Twitter at DeliveryMCU. Let us know what you think of the next episode that comes out, and we will get you on the on the podcast, and we'll discuss what your thoughts were. But guys, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll see you all next week. Bye bye.